At the same time, I acted as a substitute for 3 young ladies. I loved passionately, worked diligently, and was prosperous. Miss Number 1 said that her lover had returned and wanted to break up. I looked at her with sadness and affection, and she softened and wrote me a generous check. Miss Number 2 said she had found someone who looked more like her lover and wanted to break up. I fell silent, feeling wronged, and placed a carefully crafted cake on her desk. She was moved and instructed her assistant to transfer a luxurious downtown mansion under my name. Until Miss Number 3, Irene, coldly ignored me without giving a reason and said, "Let's break up." I started feeling annoyed and couldn't help but say, "You want to break up with me too?" Miss raised an eyebrow, her voice turning icy. "What do you mean, too?" Oh, this situation has taken a turn for the worse. Chapter 1. She's back, so you should leave. Katherine said these words calmly, and I was initially taken aback. 3 seconds later, I lowered my head. When I looked up again, my eyes were already reddened. My face turned slightly pale, and under the sunlight, my body seemed a bit unsteady. Katherine pursed her lips, turned around, and leaned over the desk, making a few swipes. "This is your compensation. As you know, Gavin has returned, and I have no choice." Beautiful. I watched this series of almost theatrical scenes unfold. Hurriedly, I pinched my thigh hard, and a tear fell directly. My voice trembled as I asked, "Is there really no possibility anymore?" Actually, this sadness is not fake. After all, in today's world, it's not easy to find such a lucrative job for a fool like me. Katherine hesitated to hand the check to me, reaching out to hug my back and said in a hoarse, mature voice, "You will find someone better." No, not at all. I immediately denied it in my heart. I've been struggling in this line of work for years. It's rare to find such a miserable scapegoat. I slowly pushed her hand away and said softly, "I understand." With that, I left directly. Katherine wanted to hold me back, but she didn't have time. An hour later, I packed my belongings and left, leaving no trace of my existence in the villa. Only after transferring $8 million into my bank account did my anxious heart finally relax. Suddenly, Katherine sent me a message. "Where did you go?" I can understand why she asked. After all, in her eyes, I was a pitiful little white face who loved her desperately. Perhaps in her imagination, I should be crying in some small rental house. But in reality, a few young and beautiful masseuses were diligently massaging and kneading my shoulders and feet, using their fair and slender fingers to peel grapes and feed me red wine. I was so comfortable that I didn't even want to lift my eyelids, let alone reply to a message. As a result, for the next 2 or 3 days, Katherine kept calling and messaging me incessantly. I felt a bit puzzled. Didn't her lover return? Chapter 2. Actually, logically speaking, I should reply. As a professional moonlighting white moonlight substitute like me, I should prioritize the client. Perhaps in the future, when the boss realizes that the white moonlight has turned dark, they might come back to take care of my business. Looking at the financial report of my studio and the balance in my phone, I reluctantly sent Katherine a message. "Hello, don't worry about me." The less messages I send, the more I think about it. The more I say not to worry, the more I miss her. It's human nature, and I understand it very well. The next day, I styled my hair handsomely, made a cake myself, and went to Joan's group. Marlene, one of the 4 princesses of the Jing Circle and the beloved daughter of the chairman of Joan's group. Her wealth can be compared to Katherine's, and she can spend money lavishly. As soon as the door opened, I saw a young man sitting next to the woman, and they were extremely ambiguous. I paused. No need to act, my mood was already at its lowest. Seeing that it was me, Marlene panicked and pushed the man away, then pretended to cough lightly. Xiao Nuo, please go out first." The male celebrity glanced at me unhappily, unwillingly walked out. Unlike Katherine's sickly white face, Marlene preferred stubborn little wolf dogs, so I just remained silent with my head down. As you can see, he's more like the Alex from back then. Let's break up. After a long silence, I said, "Okay." Then I quickly approached. Speaking rapidly, with a trembling voice, I carefully took out the cake. "I won't bother you anymore. You love sweets, and this is a small cake I've been making for a long time, but..." Then I looked up at her. Serious, sad, and my voice getting smaller and smaller. "Can you not give it to him to eat? This was made for you." I pleaded humbly. Finally, tears welled up in my eyes, but I still looked at her steadfastly. She became flustered and handed me a tissue, taking a step forward. But I stepped back. "Ah," she sighed, "I will eat the cake." Then she immediately made an internal call, "Tell my dad to transfer the luxury house in the city center under Carl's name. This is the only thing I can do, accept it, forgive me." My heart skipped a beat, pausing for a second. The next moment, with tears in my eyes, I loudly questioned, "Do you think this is what I want?" After speaking, I ran out of the office, didn't even take the elevator, and went straight to the emergency exit. Hilarious. Sorry, this is exactly what I wanted. Chapter 3. I heard that Marlene even chased after me and searched for me everywhere. At that time, I was busy moving. This luxury house is considered a small unit, but it sold for over $30 million. I had agreed with the seller to complete the handover in 1 month, so I planned to move in and live there for a while. I was getting closer to my goal. But I hadn't been happy for long when I was called to the office by Miss Irene, the third miss. Her voice was cold and her tone was low. "Break up." The same thing happened 3 times in a row, even immortals wouldn't be able to tolerate it. So, instinctively, I said, "You want to break up with me too?" Realizing my reaction, I immediately covered my mouth, wishing I could slap myself. Irene raised an eyebrow, her gaze as cold as ice, and said, "What do you mean by two?" My throat tightened, and I couldn't utter a word. But I saw her lazily resting her legs, clad in black stockings, on the table. Then she reached out her hand and beckoned me over, expressionless, saying, "Come here." Irene saw that I didn't move, so she got up and walked towards me. I immediately stepped back, whispering, "Don't do this, it's not necessary. Congratulations and best wishes to you, happy breakup." But as soon as I reached the door, her leg in high heels kicked it closed. Then Irene leaned against the door, smiling lightly, but her eyes sent chills down my spine. The voice of an icy queen rang out. "Translate this for me. What does also want to break up with you mean?" "It's just. I awkwardly smiled. "Are you 2-timing?" I immediately shook my head. "Is it 3-timing?" I froze for a moment, and her smile turned cold. She raised her hand, and I immediately took a few steps back. Starting to explain and argue, "I know this goes against the agreement, but while you pursue your moonlight, I do my substitute work in my spare time. It's just a few extra jobs, no big deal. I don't want your money anymore." "Oh wait. Our contract hasn't been signed yet." Thinking about this, I stood up immediately. At the time, the middleman, old Wang, mentioned something similar and said it was for the CEO of Williams Group. We had been in contact without signing a contract, and I thought that the CEO of such a big company wouldn't cheat me out of that little bit of money, so I didn't pay much attention. "Hey, now is the perfect time." I straightened my back. "If we're breaking up, we're breaking up. Since the contract hasn't been signed, don't expect me to compensate you." "What contract?" She furrowed her eyebrows. "The substitute contract. I don't want your money anymore." "Ah, it's such a shame that I've spent the past 6 months eating, sleeping, and going out with you." I counted with some emotion and pain. Irene's beautiful eyes slightly dimmed, and she spoke slowly and distinctly, her voice as clear as water. "Are you saying that in these 5 months, when we were dating, going out for meals, watching movies, and even, you were only after the money?" Her last words were even filled with resentment. I was confused, but I'm just a professional substitute, an actor, a professional. She lowered her head and closed her eyes. For a long time, I saw her eyes reddening, and her voice started to tremble. Then, Did you and someone else? Just that. It was. You and someone else. Did you? Her sentence wasn't complete, but it was implicit. But it made my heart skip a beat. How strange. As if we were really in a relationship. "You're talking about sleeping together." No, I sell my skills, not my body. In that time it was all fake, harmless hallucinogens. She suddenly let out a sigh of relief. As if a deflated balloon. Leave. I left the room in confusion, thinking that this matter had come to an end. Until a banquet. I saw the 3 misses, each with a different style, sitting at a table in their formal dresses. And then, they all looked at me together. Chapter 4. Honestly, I really wanted to turn around and run. Katherine, with her gentle yet aloof demeanor, wore an elegant white dress that accentuated her grace. Marlene donned a stunning wine-red low-cut dress, revealing a hint of her snowy white chest. And Irene wore a black gown that not only highlighted her slender and graceful figure but also intensified her already imposing aura. The four princesses of the capital occupied the space. Each of them possessed their own beauty, and the scene was undeniably captivating. But I truly dared not look. I was afraid that they were discussing how to kill me. Taking a deep breath, I turned around, intending to find a secluded corner. Then I heard someone behind me calling my name. Carl. It was Marlene's soft and charming voice. I hesitated for a moment, gritted my teeth, and forced myself to turn back. To my surprise, the three of them had actually walked up to me. Marlene continued teasingly, "Didn't you say you wouldn't bother me? You chased after me all the way here." Katherine's eyebrows twitched as she glanced at Marlene. Then she said, "Why didn't you answer my calls? I was worried about you." I felt a sense of unease. Instinctively, I looked at Irene. Coldness emanated from her eyes and she spoke in a deep voice. I also want to know the answers to their questions." I stood there dumbfounded for 3 seconds, feeling a splitting headache. Katherine was the first to react. She took a step forward and gently pressed her fingers against my temples. "Leave me, you won't even take care of yourself. Gavin has something to attend to today, will you be my escort?" Before I could refuse, Marlene pulled me away. "He came to see me, why should he be your escort?" The two of them started arguing, and I took the opportunity to wink at Irene, wanting to ask her if she had said anything. Unexpectedly, she spoke leisurely, "I don't have an escort either." Me. As the two of them continued their internal dispute, it began to escalate. "Carl, be my escort, and I'll give you a complete set of customized suits from Gianna next month for the red carpet." "Hey! This is a good deal." My eyes brightened. "Clothes are nothing, Carl. Consider a black Ferrari." My eyes brightened even more. Following the order, it was Irene's turn. With an indifferent and cold expression, she spoke in just 2 words. "I don't." I waved my hand, eliminating her from consideration. "Are you auctioning yourselves off? Well, then I'll offer Su Yunchuan's Green Willow and Blue Mountain painting." The voice was crisp and pleasant, and I immediately looked over. It was Livia. Now, the 4 princesses of the capital were all present. She was also one of my targets tonight. I adjusted my tie and approached, preparing to introduce myself in a charming manner. Then I heard Irene's chilly voice, "Carl, you better choose wisely." The threat was implicit. My smile froze. "How about adding some more chips? Like a Rolex Stardust or?" Irene shook her head, her slender fingertips caressing the wine glass. "No." Chapter 5. I suspect that Irene came here to ruin my plans. With the accompaniment of melodious music, Irene spoke up, "What are you here for today?" "Business matters," I replied with a low tone, my eyes still searching for my targets. "To lure women?" she asked. Unable to discern her emotions, I felt no annoyance, but I also didn't feel like responding to her. Irene chuckled, superficial but foolish. I instantly furrowed my brows and looked at her. "Because I'm richer than all of them," she explained. "But you're stingy." I retorted immediately, lowering my head to count 1 by 1. "On our first date, you took me to your company's cafeteria. On special occasions, you only offer some extremely difficult-to-eat desserts. And the gift you gave me for the Lunar New Year was merchandise from your own company." While Katherine initially gave me a credit card with 6 figures, Marlene later gave me a set in the city center. Irene's face grew darker and darker. Before I could finish my words, she interrupted, "Do we really need to discuss your 3-timing situation here?" I immediately covered my mouth. Then, I lowered my head and softly defended myself, "Don't spread rumors. I am simply a contract body double, and I just took on a few more jobs. You capitalists, when will you understand the hardships of us common folks?" As I spoke, I caught a glimpse of Livia leaving, and my heart skipped a beat. I pushed Irene aside and said quickly, "I'll go to the restroom." Then, without caring about anything else, I followed her. I didn't see Irene's icy gaze. Chapter 6. The whole meeting was a great success. Even in a place like the restroom, Livia's elegant aura couldn't be hidden. I had to exert a lot of effort to suppress the joy in my heart. But then, at a corner, suddenly, someone bumped into my chest. I was stunned. The woman who was leaning against my chest extended her fair fingers and lightly traced them across my neck, causing me to involuntarily flinch. Then, a gentle voice whispered in my ear. "If you're luring women, why not lure me instead, huh?" The ending of her words had a teasing tone, and her breath felt warm. In an instant, it felt like something exploded in my mind, and my face turned red. There was no way around it. The leading lady was too beautiful. The leading man found it difficult to control himself. The atmosphere in the air gradually heated up. And then, in the next moment, Irene was kicked to the ground. The two women started fighting. Chapter 7. To say that Marlene really likes me would be an overstatement. It's probably just her possessiveness at play. Her outburst actually made me sober up quite a bit. Anyway, the three of us are done. I'm just a struggling actor trying to make a living. Please leave me alone. If you want to fight, do it after I leave. With that, I dusted off the dirt from my suit and ran away. To my surprise, when I reached the entrance, there were no taxis, only a familiar black Bentley. I glanced back at the two figures walking towards the exit, gritted my teeth, and walked briskly towards it. "Driver, please hurry up and drive." Just as I finished speaking, I felt the space becoming crowded and the atmosphere turning eerie. Turns out Katherine was leaning sideways, helping the handsome guy next to her put on a necklace. I occupied the empty seat beside them. The handsome guy, understanding the situation, quickly moved inside. He and I bear a striking resemblance. I instantly understood what was going on. I smiled ingratiatingly. "Miss Katherine, can we start driving?" Katherine looked at me, then glanced at the two approaching figures, her smile somewhat ambiguous. Leisurely, she said, "We can consider ourselves best friends, let's exchange greetings." I almost immediately went to open the car door but was stopped by Katherine. I couldn't help but laugh. "I really should have checked the almanac before leaving today, this is just too unfortunate." Marlene smiled coyly. "Katherine, you're quite fortunate." Katherine's lips curled up. "Thank you for your generosity." Irene looked at me and asked, "So, this is your choice?" I could only look at the handsome guy in the car. "Oh, you must be Gavin, right? Your suit looks great today. Where is it from? And your physique is impressive too. Which gym do you go to? Invite me next time." My words flew out at lightning speed as I slowly closed the window. Once the window was completely closed, I immediately shouted loudly to the front, "Driver, everyone's here. Let's go." Chapter 8. The car raced ahead, leaving a trail of dust behind. Katherine lost her smile, with a hint of scrutiny in her expression. "How did you two meet?" I turned my head towards Katherine, then shifted forward a bit. "What did Gavin study abroad? Does he want to enter the entertainment industry when he returns?" Katherine lost her patience. "Carl." I interrupted her. "Thank you, please let me get off up ahead." But she suddenly grabbed my hand. I immediately tried to pull away. "Katherine, we've already. The contract ended, don't make Gavin jealous. He's my brother." "Then you two." "You too." "Ah. Quite exciting, isn't it?" I don't know if it's because of the uncontrollable gossip in my eyes or if Katherine became annoyed. I was kicked out. The moon was faint, and there was a field of rapeseed flowers next to me. There were no cars around, and I might have to walk for a whole night. I felt incredibly calm, even a bit excited. It's all over, and my dream can finally begin. The high beams lit up behind me, but I couldn't see clearly. I walked to the side of the road. A red Lamborghini turned off its lights and parked next to me. "Get in." Those eyes were piercing. It was Irene. I couldn't figure out her intentions and was afraid of her revenge later, so I obediently got in the car. After she asked for the address, she seemed somewhat surprised, then became cold again. When we arrived downstairs, I bowed. "Thank you, President Williams, for your hard work." Irene didn't say anything but followed me into the elevator. You can drop me off downstairs, thank you. No need to come up, this building is very safe." I walked quickly, preparing to open the door and go inside. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the woman opening the door to the adjacent room. I exclaimed, "Oh my goodness. Some relationships are better off resolved than pursued." Chapter 9. I can't imagine too much, but it's all right. With the available funds, I gave the order in the studio group, and the preparations for the project began. I, a minor actor with little recognition, Carl, I'm going to be a director. It's an art house film based on my parents' love story, portraying the vibrant and varied experiences of their generation. For me personally, I'm a theater enthusiast and I want to make great films. For my late father and my mother, who has forgotten so much, this is their wish. So, I'm willing to do anything for this. If I were a bit more stubborn, in response to Irene's question, I might even say dash. What are 3 ships? I can even chain boats together. Acting, that's my profession. Many of the pre-production tasks can be done at home, so it's like taking a small break indirectly. I've already prepared myself for staying up late, playing games, sleeping until I naturally wake up, ordering takeout, and taking some time to comfortably read work reports. But the next day at 6 a.m., the doorbell rang. And I had just put down my tablet. What is it? I said impatiently. Irene looked at me and chuckled softly. Why do you look like this? I turned my head and saw in the dressing mirror that my already messy hair had been turned into a bird's nest by the woman. I squinted my eyes as I looked at her. She discreetly cleared her throat and covered the smile at the corner of her lips with her hand. This is breakfast I brought for you. Enjoy it while it's hot. I took it from her, gritted my teeth, and closed the door. Went back to sleep. I initially thought she was being weird. Until she kept ringing the doorbell for a whole week. I understood. This was her way of getting back at me. So, on a late night at 2 a.m., I brought barbecue skewers and rang Irene's doorbell. I was prepared to see her frustrated face. But when she opened the door, all I saw was a vast expanse of snowy white. The woman leaned against the entrance in a lacy nightgown. Her rare laziness clashed sharply with her previous aloofness. What do you want? She asked. I didn't say anything and handed her the skewers. With a snap, I voluntarily closed the door and patted my own stomach. Didn't I just eat supper? Why am I hungry again? Chapter 10. The pre-production phase is coming to an end, and the casting process has officially begun. The entertainment industry is saturated with aspiring actors, making it quite challenging to find good talent. After several days of auditions, just when we were about to wrap up, the producer approached me mysteriously, saying that he had secured the investment. Opportunities don't just fall from the sky. Our film is set in a different era, and we can manage the budget wisely. You should reconsider, he said with a serious expression as I continued packing my things. The producer looked anxious. We can't afford to offend this young lady. Don't you want your film to be released and consider its box office success? Is it really that serious? I thought he was exaggerating, but I agreed to his suggestion of meeting the people involved first. A woman, adorned in luxury and wearing sunglasses, leaned against the sofa. She took off her shades and let out a laugh. Oh, acquaintances. It's my honor to be acquainted with Miss Jones. And the person beside Miss Jones, please begin your performance, I said without any intention of flattery. Marlene, on the other hand, pushed the producer aside and came to sit next to me. You've got some skills, climbing up to Katherine and Irene, huh? Carl, you really surprised me, she said as I brushed off her restless hand and pointed to the young actor she was sponsoring, who was performing. Please respect an actor's performance. She waved her hand in a helpless manner. 10 minutes later. I was stunned. I felt that he didn't respect my vision. I cleared my throat. I'm sorry, but you don't quite fit our character requirements for now. The actor seemed indifferent to my words and looked at Marlene with a pitiful expression. If your production budget is only $50 million, I can invest another $50 million to let him play the lead role, he said. Marlene's casual attitude infuriated me. But in the end, I gritted my teeth and managed to squeeze out 3 words, it's not needed. Are you sure? We can negotiate the price. 60 million, 80 million? Not even 100 million. Marlene's expression turned from shock to nonchalant. Carl, you're getting a bit greedy. Do you know that I can make it impossible for you to continue filming? I couldn't contain my anger any longer. I slammed the table and stood up, not needed. How many times do I have to say it? Marlene. Take your talentless pretty boy and leave. Marlene was taken aback by my outburst, you're so fierce. Do you think we won't screen your film in our shopping mall? One sentence left me speechless. I quickly put on a smile, Marlene, I apologize. It was my mistake. Please forgive me for my insolence. But she had another question. Was your previous obedience all an act? We have a contract, don't we? I am an actor, a professional, I said, patting my chest. She seemed somewhat indifferent, lost in her own thoughts. But I'm still not happy. I laughed, the smile not reaching my eyes. I would no longer bow down or grumble. Miss Jones, I am poor. I've done many things for money in the past. But now, this is my dream. I pointed to the set and said, word by word, I've prepared for 8 years. If you dare to tamper with it, I will fight you with everything I've got. Chapter 11. That day, Marlene didn't cause any trouble. Later, for some reason, she kept coming to my set for no apparent reason. My true nature, especially when it comes to acting, was fully exposed to her. Why didn't the prop team prepare in advance? Do they think having 2 eyes is just for show? Who will take responsibility if something goes wrong? She scolded the prop team, the costume team, the actors, and the assistants. I practically scolded the entire set. Sometimes, I feel like a firecracker. But the flaws caused by their mistakes throughout the entire film are as unbearable as nails on a chalkboard. Marlene handed me a thermos. Here, have some pear tea to cool down. I didn't take it and asked her, what are you here for? Marlene crossed her arms and looked around the set. I'm here to see how well you're shooting. How many screenings it will be suitable for. In an instant, I turned around to my assistant and said, quickly bring the boss's chair from the office. And get that umbrella too. Also, go buy me an extra cold matcha frappuccino. Marlene tilted her head and laughed, with a meaningful smile. You still remember what I like to drink? I looked at her without saying a word. Confidently, she spoke up. You still love me. I patted her shoulder and turned back to the monitor. It's best if she can maintain this illusion until the film is finished. At noon, the assistant brought food, and Marlene ordered takeout. When she saw my lunchbox, she paused. Who sent this? I took big bites while reading the script and casually said, I don't know, probably not poisoned. It's from the Williams family-owned Wan Jia Lu restaurant. I paused for a second and said, ah. Unexplainably, I felt like someone was watching us. But it couldn't be Irene. She's not that twisted. However, that night, I found out why I had that feeling. Breaking news. The third princess of the capital's entertainment circle accompanies her new boyfriend on set, sharing an intimate meal together. I didn't panic when I saw this article. I hired some internet trolls to promote the film in the comments, just to increase its exposure. After all, if publicity comes knocking on your door for free, why not take advantage of it? So the next day, 3 more women showed up. The 4 wealthy princesses sat in a row, capturing the attention of the entire set. I had a splitting headache. Chapter 12. What are you all here for again? Katherine retorted, if she can come, why can't I? Irene pondered, eating my food and being intimate with someone else. I looked at Livia, your scenes don't start for a few more days. Livia nodded, yeah, I thought I'd join in on the fun. I said. Curious glances from the entire set kept coming, and I couldn't hold back anymore. So, you 4 are conjoined twins who have to do everything together. Are you forming a girl group? Next door is the Fruit Tower building. If you have nothing better to do, you can debut together. Stop being a nuisance here, can't you? Marlene was used to my outbursts and raised her hand, I have my own theater. Katherine caught on immediately, well, my family owns the top media company. Does your film not need promotion? Irene didn't back down, the 3 major video platforms are all under Williams Holdings. Livia was a bit lost, huh? Sisters, are we starting a competition again? Let me think. Isn't your uncle the dean of the art department? He can design the posters. He only paints traditional Chinese art. It would be such a waste. Katherine and Marlene started arguing again. I couldn't take it anymore and gestured to the producer, call the paparazzi. Irene lazily leaned on my director's chair and negated my action. No need for that. In the entertainment circle, whether they release the film or not, they still have to ask us first. Chapter 13. Amidst the chaos and unbearable commotion, under the scorching sunlight, I seem to have realized something. The price of every gift has already been predetermined by fate. These are the consequences of my pursuit of fast money from a few years ago. Time passes by quickly. It wasn't until the secretary brought a lunchbox and handed it to Irene, who stood up and placed it on the table, passing the chopsticks to me. Finally, I asked the question that I hadn't had the chance to ask before. Why do you always bring me food? As soon as I spoke, the other three also looked at me. Irene didn't mind and opened the lunchbox, placing it on the table. Then her gaze fixed on me, her starry eyes focused. Her voice was neither loud nor soft, but all three present could hear it. Can't you tell? I'm pursuing you. Chapter 14. For a moment, I was stunned. Irene leaned in closer, whispering enticingly, "Wouldn't it be nice if I helped you kick those three annoying pests away? With me around, they won't dare to do anything." Irene had clearly been immersed in the business world for many years. With just a few words, she hit the nail on the head. I immediately understood and embraced her tightly. "My dear, you've been through so much trouble. Next time, I'll cook for you." "My dear?" Katherine furrowed her eyebrows. Marlene, displeased, retorted directly, "What's so troublesome about ordering takeout?" Livia raised her hand, "I'm hungry too." Ignoring them, Irene leaned against me, handing me the script. "Focus on your script, I'll feed you." My heart twisted like a pretzel, but with the others watching, I had no choice but to go along with it. Bit by bit, as I ate, I gradually immersed myself in the story, carefully pondering how to deliver the lines with what tone. A spoonful of rice was brought to my mouth. Instinctively, I leaned my head to eat. But the spoon kept moving farther away. I went after the rice. And then, she kissed my forehead. In that moment, I was shocked. President Irene, has she been possessed? Where did she learn such a cheesy and cliché move? Irene's expression remained calm, as if it had all been my imagination. But Katherine and Marlene's expressions, as if they had swallowed a fly, told me that something had indeed happened. Katherine reacted the quickest, snapping a photo with her phone, and after a series of actions, she spoke up. "I've sent it to your mom, hoping she'll be satisfied with her 18th choice son-in-law." Irene nodded, completely unfazed. "Your father doesn't know about you and your brother yet, does he?" Katherine remained motionless, took out her phone again, and stood up. "Within 2 minutes, it's been retracted. Goodbye." Marlene seemed to be enjoying the situation. Irene casually changed the subject. "I heard Uncle Jones wants to increase capital and expand this year. With President Jones neglecting his duties, coming to see other people's boyfriends every day, it's really hard for Williams to invest." Marlene couldn't believe it and stood up abruptly. "Irene, are you willing to give up billions of dollars in business for a man?" The volume of her voice made me look up. But Irene remained calm, her words carrying immense weight. "Of course not, just making the Jones family give up on you." Marlene stared at Irene, realizing she wasn't joking. Then she glanced deeply at me. Lowering her gaze, she suddenly laughed. "Oh, Irene, you're overthinking it. We've grown up together since we were kids. It was my mistake these past few days. Brother-in-law, sorry for my impoliteness. Goodbye." And just like that, another one left. I felt a sense of admiration in my heart. Irene then looked at Livia. The young girl couldn't withstand such an atmosphere and quickly stood up. "Irene, I'm going to eat." A large space emptied out, and I felt much more at ease. "Impressive." I gave Irene a thumbs up. "Your girlfriend is so amazing, don't you want to show some appreciation?" Irene chuckled softly, her voice pleasant, as her fingertips lightly grazed my chest. Summer clothes were already thin, and my face turned red almost instantly. Her gentle and focused gaze felt like being enveloped in a giant fluffy marshmallow. I felt as if I had been enchanted. Slowly, I leaned in. And quickly gave her a kiss. Chapter 15. Until the end of the day's filming, I still sat in front of the monitor, watching it over and over again. It's not that I'm too dedicated. But this film just doesn't make sense at all. It keeps reminding me of the moment when Irene sat on my lap in the afternoon, and I kissed her willingly. I remember when we first started dating, going to the movies together, and she kissed me when the film ended. The cool breeze of summer blew, and I touched my cheeks, feeling a bit flushed. It's really disturbing my mind. Director, you're still not sleeping. The last member of the props team also finished work and greeted me. I stood up. Go to sleep now, it's time for you to rest too. I thought maybe a good night's sleep would make me feel normal again. But in reality, I couldn't sleep until 1 o'clock in the morning. Then I woke up in a panic. Drove for 50 miles. By the time it was almost 2 o'clock, I stood at Irene's doorstep, knocking urgently. Irene, still half asleep, looked surprised to see me. She probably didn't expect me to come. What happened? I crossed my arms. You're not treating me as your white moonlight, are you? My heart was pounding heavily, unable to bear the silence, so I immediately said, I've saved enough money, I won't be your substitute anymore. Before she could reply, I turned around to leave. I selfishly put an end to this relationship. But then, the woman hugged my arm tightly. I don't see you as some white moonlight. I was stunned, a bit puzzled. Then why did you initially approach me? Hearing my question, Irene chuckled angrily, gritting her teeth. To watch movies, have meals at the company, introduce you to everyone. Why do you think I approached you? Her voice was raised, and I shrunk my neck. But inside, I was ecstatic. Seeing that I didn't speak, Irene let out a sigh. I don't know why it led to so many misunderstandings for you, but I've always been serious. Since that's the case, let me say it again. Carl, let's be together. For real. Chapter 16. It's strange. When I came here, my steps were heavy as if I had lead in my shoes. But when I turned around to leave, it felt light as if I could float away. Do you want to stay here with me? Irene blushed and whispered. No, it's fine. I quickly waved my hand, took a few steps to my room, and started searching my wallet for the keys. But there was nothing. Irene leaned against the door, her smile full of excitement. Come on, my new boyfriend. At this moment, I felt a bit embarrassed, taking slow steps. And as I looked back to a month ago, I was still the confident Aquaman, swimming smoothly through life. Intentional or unintentional, they are different. Your place is so big. I observed the room. It was almost twice the size of Marlene's place. Yeah, I bought it originally with the intention of living together with you. Her voice was hoarse, carrying a hint of resentment. All right then, the house has been sold, and I have to move by the end of the month. Do you want me to move in with you? I looked at her. She paused for a moment. No. Then the girl hid herself in my embrace. I'll take you tomorrow morning and, by the way, give me the keys. I'll move in by myself. Chapter 17. I've always known what I wanted to do, without caring about whether I could achieve it or what the outcome would be. 8 years ago, my classmates who used to have fun with me thought I was crazy, with delusions, and they mocked my scripts. 5 years ago, a producer told me, don't take such big steps, it's easy to mess things up. 3 years ago, Agent Lao Wang told me that a wise person knows how to adapt to the times, and that self-esteem means nothing in the face of money. And at the film premiere, there were still critics who never looked up, criticizing every little thing about me, claiming that I was just trying to manipulate the box office. But when I saw my mother in tears at the end, I knew that none of it mattered. I had succeeded. Their era had been recreated in a different way. Memories were like a reluctant lover, bidding their final farewell. The market for art films was not big, and many theaters didn't have much faith in them, resulting in low screening rates. But thanks to Irene, the Jones family's theater gave us face. With Irene's platform, a series of promotions and hype followed suit, combined with overwhelming positive reviews. In the first month, the box office was less than 100 million, but in the second month, it surpassed 500 million, and in the end, it accumulated over 800 million. For a small director making an art film, this could be considered a miracle. The money deposited into my account was enough to make me laugh in my dreams. As agreed, at the end of the month, I prepared a celebration banquet and went to Irene's office. After waiting for a while, I heard, "Why are you working so hard? You even managed to get it recommended to the Cannes Film Festival. My family owns a movie theater, and his film is good, but if it gets an 8/10 on Dublin and doesn't lose money at the box office, that's already pretty good. You're so naive. If you make him successful, do you not know how many Fox spirits will come flocking to him?" My chair was facing away from them, so they didn't notice me. But I still wanted to hear what Irene had to say. Would she also think that she made a mistake by helping me? It seemed like Irene opened the files on the table, nonchalantly saying, "My husband Carl is an idealist who pursues perfection. He has his own ideas and goals, and I am his follower, willingly following him." Irene's words were calm, but they stirred something within me. But then I heard Marlene's disdainful voice, "You're disgusting." I immediately turned around, not holding back. "You're the disgusting one, Marlene. Even with all your disgusting little white faces. Both of them were startled by my outburst. Irene realized that I had overheard their conversation and awkwardly turned her head away, blushing. Marlene wasn't angry either, she just tilted her head and said to Irene in a casual tone, "Your boyfriend was deeply moved by what you just said. You can take this opportunity to turn him into your husband." Irene seemed to be in disbelief, staring at Marlene and whispering, "Isn't that too hasty?" Marlene innocently waved her hand, but he just nodded. Irene immediately looked at me. Once again, I smiled and nodded. But in the next moment, Irene ran out without a word. I anxiously shouted, "Where are you going? We have the celebration banquet tonight. Let them wait." Then I heard the door slam shut. In the room, it was just Marlene and me. She lost her smile and said, "Congratulations." I thought for a moment and asked seriously, "She doesn't really have any unrequited love, right?" Marlene rolled her eyes, ignoring me and turning to leave. However, her phone started ringing, and she glanced at it, then paused. Two people who were familiar yet unfamiliar, we stood there awkwardly for 10 minutes. Irene rushed in, handing me a bouquet of vibrant roses. Then she glanced at Marlene. And then she knelt down on one knee in front of me. "Will you marry me?" I was taken aback and quickly pulled her up. "Silly, women don't propose to men." "Then, will you?" Miss Stubborn persisted for an answer until she received my affirmative response. Like magic, she pulled out a men's ring and slipped it onto my finger. The whole process didn't take more than 3 minutes. Then she stood up, not embracing me first. Instead, she ran towards Marlene. "Me?" I snatched Marlene's phone. Irene quickly operated it with her fingers, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at my perplexed expression, she smiled. I had her take a picture as evidence, just to be sure. "You can remain silent, but your words will be presented as evidence in court. I'll leave it to you to explain to the civil registry officials tomorrow." It was both helpless and sweet. I took the initiative to embrace Irene. "All right, Irene, bring me home and keep me for a lifetime." Marlene shook her head beside us. "You two are still disgusting." I disagreed and shook my head. "No, no, no. Your acting skills as a pretty boy are the most disgusting." Chapter 18, Irene's extra story. I saw a guy like him for the first time. He was standing at a grave, saying, "Dad, rest in peace. I'll take care of Mom." In the freezing cold of the outskirts of Beijing, he immersed himself in the water, playing the role of a floating corpse, much more dedicated than the fresh-faced newcomers accompanying him. Shivering, unnoticed by anyone, but as soon as he saw a chicken leg in the lunchbox, he would smile. Vibrant and captivating, impossible to look away from. As my feelings grew deeper, I thought it must be love, so I had someone introduce me to him. He seemed naturally affectionate, and I thought he had feelings for me too. I thought we were together. But as we spent more time together, I felt that it was all fake. I thought to myself, if he truly liked someone, it shouldn't be like this. So, I decided to break up with him. And then I heard his response, "Me too." It infuriated me. I wanted to retaliate, make him cry and beg for forgiveness, and see him regretfully say, "Actually, I like you too." But looking into his clear eyes, I knew I couldn't do anything. After he left, I drowned my sorrows in alcohol or immersed myself in work, but couldn't help but reflect at night, why? Did I do something wrong? No conclusion, no control. So, like a loyal dog, I went to him again and again. Knocking on his door, seeing him in his true, handsome, and defenseless state. His disheveled, slightly curly hair, I couldn't resist ruffling it. And then he flared up like a little lion. In that moment, I understood clearly, this was the real him, the one I liked. Katherine and Marlene's concern for him had already surpassed their usual state. I wonder if they even realized it themselves. But I am a businesswoman, practicing coercion and seduction, driving away all competitors. I admit I can be a bit cunning, but I'm not that bad, am I? I will treat him well. After all, I truly love him.